Orc, the bardic paladin, who sings and plays again. He tells the tales of glory and weaves a magic story. He'll join you at your table and ask you to share a fable. Heroes of humble origin, villains who must be fought again. No matter their skill or prowess, the people in life are countless. So we pray you heed our request. Enjoy this tale of sidekicks and side quests. And side quests. Episode 20. Ulfar Ragnbjörn and the Guardians of the Iron Kings. Welcome to Sidekicks and Side Quests, the Dungeons & Dragons podcast that helps to put humans back into humanity and breathe life into your campaign NPCs with backstory and bravado. That's right, we're building a world, one character at a time. I am your host, Kurt Krenwelge, the Bardic Paladin, and I'll be joining Kevin Chenard's table in the Levitating Platter.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, yes, sir. Thank you for being a guest on my show. I'm so lucky to have back-to-back podcast celebrities, as it were.
Celebrities, yeah, okay. I wouldn't put us on that one yet, but we're getting there. We're working towards it.
Awesome. Well, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, certainly. I'm Kevin Chenard. I am a voice actor on the Chat of Fallout 76 podcast. Been doing minor voice acting work for about 10 years now, I guess.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's just small projects, actually. I've never really done anything like huge, like work for a particular company or anything like that, but close to here with some friends that have like small productions that do small podcasts, stuff like that. Something that I've always aspired to do, and yeah, it's been really fun. And the Chad Fallout 76 podcast has been absolutely phenomenal. It's been great fun, and it's a really great group of people.
That's awesome to hear. I know, particularly on the subject of Dungeons and Dragons, there is a certain show, Critical Role, which features a whole cast of voice actors who are the player characters. So I'm sure voice acting has become very popular, and especially since you've been working on it the last 10 years, that's fascinating. So it's a rewarding experience then.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, you meet a lot of great people. You hear and see so many great things. I mean, a lot of people think that voice acting is just like you get behind a mic and you start blurting out lines, and I feel that there's just so much more to it that people just don't see and understand behind it. Mm-hmm. I think it's absolutely phenomenal. It's just a lot of people, what they think is that like, oh, it's kind of like just acting, but you do so many things that you would not necessarily do in real life. Like, I have a few of my friends that actually do like on stage acting, and when they listen to the podcast, they can like change who they are, you know? Like I was saying, you take decisions that you would never do in real life. Like, you can act a different way, you can use a different voice, you can use different mannerisms. So it's like an escape for a lot of people.
Awesome. And very much so, the process and the fun that you get to have as a voice actor fits very nicely into Dungeons & Dragons, which I have to ask, do you currently play D&D, or have you ever had any experience with the game?
Yes, I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons for about, say, 20 years now. Started in my early teens, where I was introduced to the game by a couple of my friends, and it's just grown on me ever since. It's become part of my life. I've met some of my greatest friends playing Dungeons and Dragons, and it's just basically what also started me off on voice acting, because I would play either characters or I have DM'd in the past as well. And one thing I would always love to do is make my character as unique as possible, and by doing that, you know, you give them a certain way of acting. Some of the times I would give them the most outrageous voices, and it would be so much fun.
That's awesome. And so have you played your way through all the various editions then, since you've been a 20-year veteran?
I have played quite a lot of different versions of the game. I did originally start with the old AD&D back when it was
Wow.
all on percentiles, and you had things that existed like THAC0 instead of actual like to hit. And you mentioned THAC0 to someone who plays now who's only seen like maybe 3.5 and up, and they're just completely lost as to what you're even talking about.
Right. No, I've heard of that as well. I watched it in some Matt Colville video, but I still don't at this moment quite remember what THAC0 is or how it works. But yeah, something about like having to roll twice to figure out whether or not you hit or how hard you hit.
Yeah, it basically worked on the premise that you would calculate your THAC0. It would be like a modifier that you would add to your dice to see if you would actually hit and deal damage.
Oh, wow. We sure loved our math in the past, didn't we, when playing this game?
It was a lot more intense in terms of math when it came to AD&D and like second edition.
I came in on 4th edition, and so I know a lot of people like to view that as the video game version of D&D. It was a good introduction point for me, because then when 5th edition came around, I felt like, ooh, this felt old school, but it also felt familiar to, how I came into the game. So I've loved 5th edition, and that's what I've been rocking the last 5 years or so.
Well, the thing is a lot of people give 4th edition a really bad rep as being the video game version because of the fact that 3.5 was so prominent and had been around for so long that when 4th came out, they revamped the game to be more consumer friendly, because 3.5 had gotten so big and so elaborate that new players were kind of scared to get into it because there was just so much to learn. And 4th edition made it really, they simplified it. They made it so that new players would have a lot easier time to get into the game, which I congratulate them on. Like, it's how you pull in your audience, right? So a lot of it comes from that. And every fandom will have their like die-hard players, and I don't like the change, and this is pandering to the new audiences and us veterans, So I think it was a really good way to introduce D&D to the newer generation and just keep the game alive.
Well, this show is called Sidekicks and Side Quests, so I'd like to continue on and ask you, do you have a favorite NPC from any of your various D&D campaigns or video games or whatnot, and why are they your favorite sidekick or NPC?
Absolutely. I could start naming them and then we'd be here for hours and hours, but if I had one in particular, it would come from my favorite game of all time, Final Fantasy VII. His name is now... I'm not exactly sure if this is the proper pronunciation, but it's Bugenhagen, I do believe. Okay. And he's an old man that you meet fairly early in the game, I would say, compared to how big the game is. He's just a type of Deckard Cain type of character. He's a character that is so full of wisdom and knowledge, and he's just so humble in the way that when you meet him from the very get-go, he explains to you the nature of the world, like how everything is connected, that your actions towards everything have consequences. Everything you do in life is linked to something else, is linked to another life. And you can learn so much from this NPC, I find, in the game. And I wish in a way that they would have had him be more prominent within the story, but you do go back to him quite a few times throughout the game about the major events that are going on. And I love the character. If I had anyone to mentor from in real life, this would be the type of person that I would want to have as a mentor, because he's just so chock full of wisdom and knowledge, like I said, that I feel like you could learn pretty much anything about the world and how everything is connected just from this one individual.
Awesome. And then is there, if I remember your write-up that you provided, do you bring him coffee or something?
Actually, that was another character in another game, but it's from the same line of games. It's from the Final Fantasy universe.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is our segue into the next question then, which is, what's your favorite side quest from a D&D game or a video game or whatnot, and why is it it your favorite?
Yeah, this would have to come from the Final Fantasy IX game, and it's pretty interesting that I would choose for people who are aware of this game, or fans of the Final Fantasy IX game. The side quest that I would have to choose as my favorite in an RPG or a video type game would be Mr. Morrid's Coffee.
Okay.
This is a very small and very subtle side quest in the game. It is extremely easy to miss. He's actually a character that you find in the world that the game does not bring you to at all. So that is why you can miss him very easily. He's actually perched up on this mountain cliffside in his little tower. He has like a little observatory, if you will. And he's just this old man, living out his life. His name is Mr. Morrid, and he's got this fascination for coffee, as much of us in the world do. But you can see him. I do believe it's in disc 2 now. This is going back to the PlayStation 1 era, so we had multiple discs to our games. So during disc 2, if I'm not mistaken, you actually can get an airship in the game that can take you around the world a little bit. And if you spot his little tower like off the cliffside, you can actually go and land and go to it and speak to him, and he talks to you about like his experiences throughout his life and his love for coffee. And he asks you, well, if you ever end up finding some rare coffees throughout your journey, that he would love for you to bring it back to him.
Okay.
So there are 3 coffees in the world that you can get throughout the game, and they are in very, very specific times in the game. There are, I do believe, 2 that you can get fairly easy, that you can get at the end of disc 3, and there's one of them that you have to get at a very precise point in the game. And every time that you bring a coffee to him, he gives you an item and he says thank you, and he tells you how exquisite the coffee is, and he explains it a little bit. But the thing is that if you wait too long and make it to disc 4 without getting all of his coffees, Mr. Morrid actually passes away from old age.
Oh.
So it's this sad revelation, I do believe it's his like granddaughter that shows up at his house and tells you that he's passed away, in his sleep or something like that. It's really cute in a way, without being morbid. He gives you items for bringing him his coffees, and there are actually pretty rare items. I do believe the 3rd item is like, this is the only place that you can get it. But I find that this is one of my favorite side quests just because of how humble Mr. Morrid is, and he just wants to experience these rare coffees before the end of his time. And I find it's such a nice little quest, and like I said, it's so easily missed within the game.
I know, and how much more of a life lesson is it where, if we don't stop to look around at the people around us, like, yeah, go, that nice old man, that nice old lady who lives on your block, go have a cup of coffee with them, and maybe they'll give you a rare magic sword before they pass on.
Yeah, it makes you think of the little things in life and just take the time to appreciate what you have, because you might not have them for long.
Exactly. And finally, as we round out the personal interview section of the show, what are you passionate about and why?
Well, there are a few things. I'm a big gamer. Obviously. I'm very passionate about gaming. It's been a part of my life since I can remember. One of my fondest memories was actually when I was a very little kid. My father and we used to sit down in front of the TV after I was done my homework, and we would basically play Tetris or Dr. Mario. And my dad was a big believer in being able to teach like fundamentals through actual games. Like problem solving was a big thing. My dad was really into teaching me, and he would sit me down in front of these games that were basically puzzle games, and he'd have me go through these things. And that's why he also taught me like chess, and it was really amazing growing up with that influence. So yeah, gaming has always been a very big part of my life. Another thing would have to be the voice acting. I've always been sort of like a goofball kind of clownish person since I was young, so throwing out weird little voices here and there and making people laugh have always been something that I've been really good at, and so voice acting kind of came naturally to me. and it's like always something that has stuck with me and that I use in my everyday, and I just love it. It's a pastime.
Awesome. I feel like we're two kindred souls. And what do friends do together? Why, they make some NPCs. Pretty smooth segue there. All right, so this is the part of the show where my guest will lead the efforts in creating a NPC character for you to use in your game. So if I'm not mistaken, I believe that my guest has brought an NPC that we'll be sharing today, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so what is the character's name?
My character's name is Ulfar Ragnbjörn.
What is the ancestry for Ulfar?
Ulfar is a dwarf. He is a stubborn dwarf.
What is the role or job that Ulfar has in society?
By trade, Ulfar is an experienced blacksmith, ranging from anywhere from metalwork to weaponsmithing and armor smithing. But he is also an experienced fighter.
So how old is Ulfar?
Ulfar is 85 years old, which is kind of past mid-age for a dwarf.
Dwarves can be up to, a couple hundred years old in D&D terms?
Yeah, in D&D terms, we're usually getting to the end of a dwarf's life around the 150, 160 years, I think.
Oh, okay. I think in 5th edition, yeah, it may boost it up even higher, but hey, 85's nothing to snuff at. So describe the physical appearance of Ulfar.
Yeah, Ulfar is, well, I wouldn't say your typical dwarf. He stands at about a 4 feet 5 inches tall, weighs around 200 pounds. Very muscular, stout, rugged dwarf. Long beard, mostly braided, typical of a dwarf that roams around the land. It's easy to maintain. If it's braided, gets a little bit less dirty. But, on that, it is adorned with some dwarven runic beads that you can see throughout his hair and beard. He's usually, walking around on his dailies with a little bit of studded leather, average clothing for, I wouldn't say low society, but like your everyday, like...
Tradesman?
Yeah, tradesman type of thing.
Okay.
He's usually covered head to toe in some sort of soot or forge dust, mostly probably from working at the forge all day with iron. You tend to get a little bit dirty.
What are the 3 adjectives that best describe Ulfar?
Definitely proud, fierce, and respectful.
Sounds like a proper blacksmith kind of a character. Proud of his work and fierce in fighting skill, and then he's also, polite to his customers, I suppose.
I would have to say it's even more than that. He's just naturally polite. He looks to the better of people, so by presenting himself as such, he can bring out the good in others.
What is a valuable item, a piece of lore, or some secret that Ulfar possesses, or if it's not that, what's like an abstract ideal or concept that Ulfar follows?
Ulfar is actually part of a group that I have created in one of my campaigns called the Guardians of the Iron Kings. They are a group of noble dwarves that have passed down quite a lot of knowledge and teachings of very specific dwarven society for generations. And one of their main goals is they are followers of Morrid. I know that the pantheon has changed over the years a little bit there, but Morrid used to be the main dwarf god. So they are they pass on the teachings of Morrid. Ulfar a little bit less on the teachings of Morrid because he's not like a cleric per se, but he is a stout fighter warrior of Morrid, and he always keeps it's like a pendant, if you will, the symbol
Okay.
of the guardians with him that was passed down from his father to him when he passed away. And yeah, so he's a stout follower of them. They are usually comprised of like fighters, paladins, and clerics, as in most of the dwarven societies we'll see.
Is there a particular oath or charge that these guardians of the Iron Kings have then?
Yeah, they are basically the protectors of the people. They are dispatched throughout the dwarven lands to make sure that any uprisings of like orcs or goblins of the such, do not interfere with the everyday lives of the dwarven people. They are not, however, considered a king's army. They are actually apart from them. They can take orders from the king if it actually is something directly protecting the realm, but they are apart from his rule.
Interesting. So kind of a body to kind of check the authority.
Correct.
Interesting. That's super cool to be part of not necessarily a secret society, but kind of like this noble samurai sort of caste that will go out and protect the dwarven society against outside threats.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. What is a particular side quest that he'd be willing to recruit or hire player characters to go on?
Well, certainly Ulfar is more of a nomadic member of the Guardians of the Iron Kings. He goes from town to town quite often, so it is not too rare for him to actually recruit others, especially if there is looming threats that are a little bit more dire, if I could say, than waiting for more reinforcements from the guardians of other towns. So he would definitely recruit other players into helping his cause, or even if there are other dwarves that he runs into, he could try and recruit them into the guardians of the Iron Kings if he sees them as a worthy addition.
Okay. So he's a traveling fighter, traveling blacksmith, going from town to town, kind of on a patrol, if you will. And so if he were to appear in someone's game, he would just kind of be like, hey, I need your help. I'm busy fighting these things. Come with me and let's go stomp out evil, kind of a thing.
For sure.
Awesome. So then what would be the reward for player characters who go forward with Ulfar to go vanquish the evil that he comes across?
Oh, for sure. He would definitely trade knowledges. It would be one of his first things. He is a believer of, knowledge, and acquisition of knowledge is far more worth than actual coin. So, I mean, being such a seasoned adventurer, if you will, he would definitely exchange in stories, knowledge of blacksmithing, armors, weapons, fighting, tactics, and battle. If people are more akin to the usual, gold coin, then obviously Ulfar is, I wouldn't say rich, but he's done a good fair bit of trading over the years that he's gotten some coins to his name, so he could probably pay off adventurers for helping him out, that's for sure.
Right. He sounds like he would be a valuable resource to go to, especially if he's got fighting techniques that he can teach, or he can provide blacksmithing services to the players. And especially if they continue to be good to him, perhaps he'll be able to blacksmith armor and weapons at a reduced cost, which players are always, I'm sure, trying to haggle the lowest price possible.
Exactly.
So then if a group of player characters refused to aid Ulfar, or they just kind of flat out ignored him, what's going to be the consequence of that?
Well, I mean, the way that Ulfar operates is really with the virtues of the Guardians of the Iron King. So if someone would refuse to heed the call, if you will, he wouldn't take vengeance upon it. You would probably end up in his on his dark list, if you will, for like if ever he bumped into that particular character or group of characters in the future, like he would probably not overtly help them on something that wasn't, directly in violation of his own code. And consequence of failure, I don't think there would be one, because he would see them as, look, you helped me when you didn't have to. And just that alone puts you in his good deeds. Like, you went out of your way to help someone else.
Okay. If you went to go fight orcs or goblins and the goblins got the better hand and knocked everyone out, or they just retreated, and then that's a net good in Ulfar's book. But if they're just like, smell you later, and he's just kind of like, list, like, write these guys' names down on my list, and if they're in trouble, not go out of my way to help them, or hopefully maybe not as extreme as calling them cowards or something outright in the street. If like a bunch of bad continues to happen, and be like, oh look, I'm trying to do all this hard work and protect the town, but these cowards over here won't even lift a finger to help me or something.
Correct. Like, I don't think it would go so much towards the fact that he would refuse to help them. Of course, if it was the same group of adventurers coming and saying, like, look, we just came from a town that was ransacked by orcs, we need help fighting them, of course he would help them. But if they came asking for, like, oh, we need, repairs on our gear, can you do this for us? He would probably, give them the cold shoulder for that.
Okay. Well, there you go. There's some drama. There's some tension. So hopefully your band of adventurers will see the light and fight on the side of right with Ulfar. Were you wanting to delve deeper into any of these other optional questions, or do you feel like we've reached a pretty good point with Ulfar?
That's completely up to you. I do not mind at all if you want to keep going.
What are the goals and motivations then of Ulfar?
Ulfar's goals are pretty simple. He lives his life to the fullest. So just learning the ways of his order is always something that he's going to pursue. I mean, he is, like I said before, he's not inherently a cleric. So learning in the magical ways of Morrid is not something that he is going to go to, but learning about his order, the history of his peoples, are always something that interests him.
And then how do these goals and motivations affect his general personality?
He usually keeps to himself. He's probably always wrapped up in doing his own work, but he will go out of his way sometime to, like, if he sees like a child struggling with something or someone who is in need of learning, he'll go out of his way to help them out, for sure. He is someone that does have quite a lot of knowledge in his profession, just the way of life and how things are in the world, that he would seek to help someone get in a foot on the competition, if you will.
And then is there any particular manner or way that Ulfar interacts with different people, or does he just have a general way that he speaks and acts?
He's very cautious in a way. He always approaches situations with a kind of like a militaristic, tactful thinking of doing things, and he can be pretty straightforward. He doesn't feel that he needs to hide things from others. People know what he's about, but that can also get him into a little bit of trouble here and there, whereas people like rogues usually tend to get the upper hand on him because he's so straightforward that people know what to do or what to say to get around that type of mentality. He's been had by a few rogues in the past, and he tends to not like it too much.
Yeah, I don't think many people like being tricked out of their personal finances and stuff.
Exactly.
Is there a particular accent or language or way of speaking idiosyncratically?
Well, like I said, he keeps to himself a lot, so he's not outgoing in terms of conversation, though he will speak his mind. Sometimes he does use a little bit of dwarven slang, but that's just because he's been around dwarves mostly all of his life. Like, he's not one to travel really far out of the dwarven lands, so he might seem a little uptight maybe to other individuals, like maybe humans, especially elves, obviously. Elves being such proper in nature, and dwarves just being general, almost guttural in a sense towards elves. But he doesn't have a particular accent. He does have a large speech language. He does use dwarven a lot. He'll throw the common out every now and then when he has to.
So what impact has Ulfar made on the world? How has he shaped the local area?
Well, I mean, he takes himself as part of the Guardians of the Iron Kings as an entity, right? So he doesn't put his achievements just solely on himself, but his order. So, constantly fighting against undead coming from the mountains, the swampy areas, the goblins, the gnolls, and even orcs, keeping them at bay. So it brings peace to the towns in his land, and he's grateful for that because everyone flourishes.
Nice. And then are there any current problems that prevent Ulfar from having a bigger part to play on the stage?
Yeah, because of that, he feels that, well, what we said earlier there about his achievements, he feels that if he travels too far from his lands, that he will not be able to be assistance of the Guardians of the Iron Kings if ever there was a call to arm for any particular situation, maybe an uprising of orcs or something like that that threaten the very way of life in his hometown. So it's probably why he hasn't been to, I don't know, let's say a dragon's lair or something like that.
All right. Well, I think we have painted quite the picture about Ulfar, and so I think it's right and proper now to throw Ulfar into a random encounter. So now this is the part where we do a short role play exercise. So I will ask my guest to embody Ulfar, and then I suppose that I'm going to be playing the part of Duncan, who's my just generic everyman adventurer human who will, I guess, come across Ulfar, and perhaps Ulfar will be there to offer a quest.
Sure.
All right. All right. Whew, my boy, are my arms tired after helping to dig that 2-mile-long trench so that intelligent boat could get to the ocean. Whew. Well, I think happily I can smell the wafting air of baking bread, and I'm here in a new town, and I'm just ready to hopefully take it easy. But I see. Who's this that's quickly approaching me? Hello, good sir. How are you doing this fine day?
Hello, sir. What brings you to this part of town?
Oh, well, I was just over at the other village helping out the orphanage and helping an intelligent boat be able to make its way to the ocean. So, my arms sure are tired.
Always respect for a fellow craftsman. Oh, you were helping the orphanage, I see. That's good of you. It's good to have more handy people around here.
Yes, that Tavish is certainly a character, I'll say.
Quite. So, are you looking for anything in particular? May I assist you? I am a blacksmith of my own trade.
Ooh, well, I certainly could use an upgrade. I know my shield and my blade have certainly seen better days, but it seems like maybe you need help with something? Maybe we could work out a deal for a discount on upgrade to my arms and armor then.
Absolutely. See, I was just on my way out to my local digging hole, if you will, as some people call it. I had some ingots that I needed to bring back, but alas, my cart that I usually use has sprung sort of a technical problem with one of the wheels, and right now I need to install a new one. Would you be kindly as to give me a hand and help me bring these ingots back to my shop?
Sure, of course. Let's tally forth.
Perfect. It's always good to have an extra set of hands to help me with these things. They could get pretty heavy.
Indeed.
Make our way towards the digging hole, and you can absolutely see the cart on one wheel as the other one had snapped in half.
Oh boy. And then, as Matt Colville would say, Orcs attack. Awesome. And scene. So then I suppose as we head into the final thoughts here of the show, so what did you think about this particular experience?
I love it. I mean, it's an escape from the real world, and people who are very imagination driven, if you will. I find that D&D is the absolute best outlet for them. You can think of pretty much everything and anything. And again, it's a great way to meet new people. Meeting you was absolutely amazing, and yeah.
I appreciate it, and thank you so much for taking time out of your day to become a guest on my show. So where can people find you on the internets, and what projects and other things do you want to plug here for our listeners to go check out?
Yeah, sure. Well, the big project that I have going now is the Fallout 76 podcast that I have called Chad, Fallout 76 podcast. We basically try to bring out an episode once a month. It has been a little bit slow ever since Bethesda Game Days because we have been quite busy with that.
Right.
And everything that's come out of that as well. But yeah, I'm on there. We've got an amazing story and an amazing cast, and we've got some pretty big projects coming up that I can't really talk about, but
Of course.
if you're into the whole Fallout universe, especially we use the setting for Fallout 76, I would definitely check us out. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook, pretty much every social media. Just, search Chad, a Fallout 76 story or podcast, and you'll find it.
Awesome. And anything else that you like a voice acting reel or so people can find you and hire you for their voice acting needs?
I have an Instagram that I post. It's _Canadian_voices.
Okay.
Whenever you can catch me, I also do streaming on Twitch, twitch.tv/Osiris_gaming.
All right. Well, this is awesome. I've had the opportunity to speak to two Canadians here very close back to back together. So now I can't wait for all the listenership to explode in Canada as two of their favorite sons have been guests now on my podcast.
Well, like I said, it's been a pleasure doing this, and it's been fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sidekicks and Side Quests. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast through Apple Podcast, Google Play, and Overcast, or feel free to save the RSS feed to use the app of your choice. Visit our website, https://sidekicksandsidequests.com for links, write-ups of the NPCs, and to learn more about the podcast. To stay up to date and share your fan creations, you can like and follow the podcast on social media by searching for @SideKQPodcast on Facebook and Twitter. The podcast is also on Reddit, so join our subreddit community at r/SideKQPodcast to share your art, stories, discussions, and commentary. If you'd like to hail the bard, send an email to sidekicksandsidequests, all one word, @gmail.com. I ask that you please leave an honest review on iTunes to help spread the word about the show. Sidekicks and Side Quests is unofficial fan content permitted under the fan content policy, meaning I'm not approved or endorsed by Wizards. Portions of the materials used are property of Wizards of the Coast. Copyright Wizards of the Coast, LLC. Thank you for your support, and I'll see you at the pub next time.
Bar to rock on 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4!